I want to start with a question. Think of something you've been wanting to start, build, or back, or lead. Before certainty arrives, something you've been carrying, perhaps for months, maybe even for years. Got it? Keep it. I'm going to come back to that. My name is Vijay Solanki, and I've spent 30 years inside some of the world's most ambitious companies: Shazam, lastminute.com, BlackBerry, Unilever, Philips. I've coached and worked with over 500 founders across 3 continents. And 3 years ago, I built my own startup inside an accelerator here in Sydney, Australia. I built it, I cared about it, and eventually I closed it. Not because I ran out of ideas, not because I lacked support, but because the numbers would not cooperate. And I'd learned finally the difference between persisting and prolonging. That sequence, the leap, the building, the honest ending, is the most instructive thing I've ever done professionally. And it gave me a question I could not stop asking. What actually separates the people who build things from the people who meant to? It's not talent, it's not capital, it's not even the idea. I want to tell you about a woman called Sherilyn Shackle. Sherilyn is the founder of the Marketing Academy, a leadership program for marketers that has produced over 1,500 alumni and is considered one of the most influential programs of its kind in the world. She started it alone, before dawn, fitting it around a full-time job, funded entirely by herself. And for the first 5 years, she worked for free, not as a volunteer, not as a student, as a professional in her 40s with a track record and a mortgage and every reason to expect to be paid. I've asked audiences all over the world, how many of you have had that feeling? A thing you believed in before any evidence existed, a project or conviction that would not leave you alone, even when sensible people said, let it go. Almost every hand goes up. You already have this quality. This talk is about what it is called and where it comes from and what it costs to practice it. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, the heart. Not bravado, not fearlessness, not confidence, the heart. Founding courage is the decision made repeatedly and often quietly to act from the deepest part of what you believe before the world has confirmed that you should. And here's what I've come to understand about it after 30 years and 500 coaching conversations and one instructive journey of my own. It's not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a practice. And like any practice, it can be learned. In 2001, a man called Chris Barton sat in front of record label executives and told them that within a few years, people would hold up a mobile phone in a noisy bar, let it listen to a song for a few seconds, and then receive the title and the artist back instantly. The phones of that era weren't even that good at sending texts reliably. A few people in the room laughed. But Chris was not deterred. He'd been carrying this idea for years, the precise, slightly maddening certainty that the problem of not knowing was what song was playing was solvable, and that he was the one to solve it. He, and at that point his one co-founder, Philippe, tracked a professor to his house on the outskirts of San Francisco. They knocked on the door and the professor told them to leave. They kept going. In 2018, Apple acquired Shazam for approximately $400 million US. That gap between what Chris could see and what the rest of the room couldn't yet believe is what I call the delusion gap. And it's one of the most misunderstood concepts in entrepreneurship. We treat the delusion gap as a warning sign, a symptom of overconfidence, a signal to pull back, do more research, wait for the evidence. But the founders that I've watched most closely treat it differently. They treat it as proof of the idea's potential, because if everyone could already see it, well, there'd be nothing left to build. The question is not whether your idea looks like delusion. The question is whether you have the founding courage to stay in that gap long enough for the impossible to become inevitable. I want to tell you about a second kind of founding courage. The kind that has nothing to do with building a company. Ed Davey is the leader of the Liberal Democrats in the United Kingdom. And before that, he was the Secretary of State, a cabinet minister, a senior figure in a government that shaped a generation of policy. And then he lost his seat. Not just the election, his seat, his identity, the institutional life that he had built over more than 2 decades, gone in a single night. Most people, and I mean this with no judgment, do not come back from that. They find a different path. They step sideways into consultancy or non-executive roles or the well-accomplished, well-compensated obscurity of the private sector. Ed Davey went back to doorsteps. Not the grand doorsteps of Parliament, but the ordinary doorsteps of his constituency, with a leaflet, in the rain, without certainty that any of it would work. And slowly, painfully, unglamorously, he rebuilt. Not bouncing back, but bouncing forward. The distinction matters. Bouncing back implies a return to what he was. Bouncing forward means becoming something that could not have existed without the loss. That is founding courage. Not the act of starting, but the act of starting again before the outcome is confirmed, before the evidence is clear, before the world has told you that you should. I've been in rooms all over the world with founders and entrepreneurs and corporate leaders, educators, politicians, social entrepreneurs. And I've noticed something that surprises people when I name it. The quality I'm describing is not most visible in the people you would expect. It's not always the bold ones, the loud ones, the ones who post about their morning routines and their cold plunges and their 5-year plans. It is most visible in the people who carry something quietly, who have been at a threshold, the same threshold, for longer than feels comfortable, who know what they want to build and have not yet found the permission. Here's what I want to say to those people. The permission is not coming from outside. It never was. There is a principle I work with in my coaching that I call biography as brief. The idea is this: every founder's origin story contains the code for what they will build and how they will lead. Sherilyn Shackle's obsessive commitment to developing marketing leaders is not separate from who she is. She is the most direct expression of who she is. Chris Barton's refusal to accept no as a final answer was not a strategy he learned. It was the property of how he moved through the world. Ed Davey's ability to start again after catastrophic loss was not resilience he manufactured. It came from a conviction so deeply rooted that the loss could not bruise it. Well, could bruise it, but could not break it. The question I ask every founder I coach is not, what is your business model? The question is, what happened to you that made this problem a problem that you cannot walk past? Because that's where founding courage lives. Not in the market opportunity, but in the biography. Now, I want to come back to the thing you've been carrying, the idea, the conviction, the project you've been meaning to start, or return to, or finally let yourself pursue. Most people hold something like that, are waiting. They're waiting for one of three things. They're waiting for certainty, for the evidence to arrive before they commit. They are waiting for permission, for someone with more authority to tell them that it's allowed. They're waiting for the right moment, for the risk to feel smaller, the circumstances to align, the conditions to be perfect. I've spent 30 years watching what happens to people who wait. The certainty does not arrive, the permission does not come, and the right moment turns out to be this one, the ordinary, the imperfect, the slightly terrifying moment you're already in. Founding courage is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision made in the presence of doubt to act anyway. Because the thing you are building matters more than the comfort of stopping. The most enduring founders I've ever observed are not the ones who get it right the first time. They're the ones who keep going in a different direction when the moment demanded it, who iterated without losing the thread of what they were trying to do, who let go of one expression of the idea with enough grace to find the next one. Founding courage is not a single act. It is a practice. And it's available to every person in the room. Not because I'm telling you it is, but because when I ask an audience of leaders, of founders, corporate executives, educators, how many of you have ever held a conviction before the evidence arrived? Almost every hand goes up. You already know what this feels like. The only question is whether you're willing to practice it. Everything I've just told you is in my book. The stories, the principles, the psychology of what it actually takes and costs to build something that did not exist before. And here is the thing about founding courage. Actually, you cannot read your way into it. You can only practice your way in. So I'm going to close with the same line that closes this book. Go and practice founding courage. Thank you.